hello. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Hashtag Comedy TV with me, your host, Mr. Cee, and these wonderful chuckle busters. What's happening, guys?
Yo,
What you say, C? Well, go on.
All good to see you, man. All good to see you. Slim, what's happening in sunny Brixton? Or is it sunny Brixton?
Sir, it is raining cats and dogs out here, mate. You know what I mean? It's pouring down. I'm indoors. I don't mind. You know what I mean? I'm not in the rain. But hey, bring a little sunshine right now to the people at home stuck in the rain with this program. So it's all jiggy, bro.
Yeah. There you go. You keep shining, Geez. You keep shining. Kane, I see you're not in the garden this week. You're indoors drinking milk.
Yeah. Nah, man. Coconut water, man. Coconut water. I told you about this one. This one, the pressed coconut. This one, bad. This is bad. Get this one. Trust me. I'm not in the garden this week, man. I said I'd come inside. But I've been getting my green fingers up, brother. Hey, give me a couple weeks. I could grow some higher grade for Slim. Trust me, brother. I got you, Slim. I got you, brother. You don't need to go out in the dark no more to get your weed. Come to me. First customer.
You know where I live.
First customer. No seeds or nothing in there. Yeah.
I agree, only none of that skunk thing.
Yeah.
Just so that our viewers are aware, Kane and Slim are not actually growing any kind of high grade at all. They're actually, Kane, I'm sure that you're inquiring for your cousin in California.
Yes.
Where it is legal and all types of coconut milk are available for consumption.
Okay, that's a good
Quincy, I see that you've got your finger on your lip. You're ready to talk. How's your week been, my bro?
I'm just being an accessory to these two geezers here, the smoker and the supplier. Watching and observing, but I'm not a snitch.
Your kid just came into the room like that was like a BBC news report, bro. I was waiting for the
what it was?
To rush in and drag him out.
He came in, it's like I couldn't even say I'm filming live. He just came into the room. I couldn't come.
Yeah, that'll go down. Yeah,
again,
that'll go down.
Just for the viewers at home to realise that actually was Quincy's son. It's not an illegal sex worker or anything like that who is employed to clean up his house. Oh dear, man. But listen, putting all fun and jokes aside for now, because we've come to this week, we're going to do things just a little bit different. Across the pond in the US of A, there's been some events that have taken place. We want to start with the main story, of course, the brutal slaying of George Floyd. I'm sure you've all seen the video. Ourselves, it's been so distressing for us to watch. So we're just going to go with the still. Slim, let's throw this down the line to you first of all. When you first saw that incident, what was your thoughts? What was your feelings?
My thoughts is like horrified and anger at the same time that this in 2020 this can be allowed to happen. Somebody in authority is allowed to effectively murder somebody on the road in front of witnesses. Do you know what I mean? That man died on Facebook Live. People was streaming his brutality and it didn't matter to him. So obviously, you know, I ain't gonna lie, I've been angry about it for ages and I weren't sure how to respond, especially on the internet. You got to mind how you say things and how you word things.
100%.
So I haven't put out anything on my social networks as a response to his death yet. But it was brutal. I think it held up a mirror to what really goes on with people that are supposed to protect us. Essentially, black people's always had a bad history with police, especially in the Western world. And there needs to be laws. It has to be changed. Something has to be done. It can't continue. But my reaction is like the rest of the world, horrified, and it held up, as I said, a mirror, because people knew this kind of thing went on. But when you actually witness it, it puts you in that uncomfortable position to do something. So,
horrified, angered. These are just some of the feelings that Slim felt. Kane, do you mirror those feelings, or was there any other feelings that went through your mind at the time?
100%. I felt the same. But what struck me was the casual look on that police officer's face spoke volumes. Like the way how everything transpired, it was like the most horrific thing. You couldn't have added anything else to that to make it even worse. The fact that he was down on his belly, the fact that he was handcuffed, the fact that you couldn't even see in the first video, there was 2 other officers on his back. This guy had his hand in his pocket with his knee on his neck for 8.5 minutes, almost 9 minutes. Anybody watching that, I don't care if you're black, white, wherever you're from, you could not watch that and feel that was just. So it really resonated with me, and I know a lot of people as well, where there's nobody could watch that and say, oh yeah, well, what did he do? Or what? There was no gray area. There's a lot of times when these things happen and everyone's like, yeah, but what did they do? What's happening? What happened 5 minutes before that? It doesn't matter what happened 5 minutes before that. It doesn't matter what happened 2 minutes before that. We saw what was happening. There was no resistance, and he just carried on and basically killed the guy in broad daylight. Breonna Taylor, the same thing. They came into her house with a warrant, looking for her boyfriend, said that there was drugs being sold in the house. She had nothing to do with it. They had a warrant, which it was the type of warrant they had. They didn't have to announce they were coming. And they could just gain entry, yeah? They've gone inside. The boyfriend, who had a legal firearm, fired back, and they shot her 8 times. Unarmed woman who didn't have nothing to do with the situation, and killed her. But if we'd seen it, if someone had recorded it, maybe the marching would be for her now, because that's just as horrific as well. But this was captured, it was in broad daylight, and the police just thought it was okay to just carry on doing what they were doing. They knew he was dead before he went into the ambulance. Yeah. He knew.
Okay, moving on. Thank you for that, Kane. And you know, thank you for bringing up Breonna Taylor as well. Quincy, your thoughts, please.
You know, it's sad to say, but out of these tragedies, these innocent, these murders, debate has come about because I've never seen so much black representation on our TVs and our channels, basically discussing these issues. And even though they've been discussed before, I think that previously they were just like spoken about and moved on like chip paper. But I think now there are people who black representation on all sides and talking their stories to the point. I thought my channel was stuck on BET or one of the African channels. The amount of black people I saw on from ITV down to Sky and various other stuff. But if anything, it was just nice for me to listen to somebody I can identify with, same color as me, speak about the slaying of the young man and various other people throughout history, and also talk about the fact of on the same day with the white lady in Central Park, you know what I mean, who basically accused a black man of harassing her when she was out of her dog. You know what I mean? So that for me it just shows that unfortunately America has got seriously deep-seated issues, and they, as much as they need to tackle racism, they need to tackle some of these middle-aged white women and their attitudes towards black men.
Well, you know what, Quincy, that's a very good point. You're talking, of course, about Amy Cooper, the Central Park lady who was walking her dog off a leash when, well, let's see what happened.
Please stop. Sir, I'm asking you to stop.
Please don't come close to me.
Sir, I'm asking you to stop recording me.
Please don't come close to me.
Please take your phone off.
Please don't come close to
And
me.
I'm taking a picture and calling the cops.
Please call the cops. Please call the cops.
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Please tell them whatever you like.
Excuse me? I'm sorry, I'm in the Ramble, and there is a man, African-American, he has a bicycle helmet. He is recording me and threatening me and my dog. There is an African-American man. I am in Central Park. He is recording me and threatening myself and my dog. And my... I'm sorry, I can't hear you either. I'm being threatened by a man in the ramble. Please send the cops immediately. I'm in Central Park in the ramble. I don't know.
Thank you.
Wow. Quincy.
This is what I was talking about. It's just like, I think there was certain things about that footage was disturbing for me. The fact that she could manipulate her and her actions get louder and more distressing, so she knew how to play a particular role to get another man potentially killed, and not potentially killed. She was half killing that dog as well. So for me, it was at some point. I don't know if it's a fashion thing for some people, but that lady there, her first thought was to call the police. That was like, for me. So I feel that they use the police to black people in America, like Lex Luthor uses kryptonite for Superman, because they know it must be our weakness or something like that. So that, for me, it was that particular footage of one of many of a middle-class white lady was so upsetting and disturbing, and it angers me.
So are white women kryptonite to black men? Are white women calling out to the police like kryptonite for us as black men? Kane, what's your views?
This is what upset me with that. That was instinct, you know. That was instinct for her. The first thing, that they know what they're doing. She knows it's a problem, and she was happy for police to potentially come out and assault this man, at least, kill him at worst. She was happy to do that because she didn't want a black man telling her what to do. That's all it was. He was out bird watching. She's not meant to have a dog off the leash. That's all he asked her to do, put the dog back on the lead. Yeah? She didn't want to do that. And this is the problem with white privilege. Now it's been challenged, it's like, you don't have the right to say anything to me. Who are you? But because she's by herself, she didn't have any other people who probably think like her to back her up. Who's the next best thing? Let me call the police. I know that black people are scared of police, and the police are going to come and... if you got two people next to each other, a white woman and a black man, you know, those are the two polar opposites. As soon as she knows that she's going to be seen as the victim, no matter what happens, for her to be raising her voice and acting all distressed, that really pissed me off, because she knew what she was doing. She knew what she was doing. She didn't even care about the dog. She didn't even care about the dog. She practically lynched the dog while on camera. She didn't business. She don't care. But you know what? She lost her job. That's the very least. I hope that people in her family and her friends step back from her, because she's a bitch.
Fucking right.
Yes. You know what? And we're not talking about the dog here. We're, of course, talking about Amy Cooper. Just wanted people to understand who he was actually calling a bitch. And rightfully so. Now, she has lost her job. And I think her workplace should be commended for doing that. It sends big signals out there to people who feel that they can use the police as a weapon against black men. Slim, what's your thoughts?
Well, look, society has been taught to fear us. So that's why we get all this calling the police on us. And there's a black man here, or a black guy doing this, or a black guy doing that. We ain't taught to fear white people physically in that way. I mean, there was a response put on the internet recently, and I actually absolutely loved it. Take a look at this clip here.
So I was about to pull off, and these two white guys got dropped off in my neighborhood, right? Live in an all-black neighborhood, and these are two young white guys in the middle of COVID-19, just got dropped off. What I'm not going to do is get out of my car and ask them why are they in my neighborhood. What I'm not going to do is follow them around and find out why are they in my neighborhood. What I'm not going to do is call the police on them because they look suspicious. 2 white guys dropped off in my subdivision where no white people live to walk around in the middle of the subdivision in the middle of the day during COVID-19. It's strange, but I'm not going to follow these white men around my subdivision. I'm not going to call the police on them, and I'm not going to harass them because they have a right to walk on the sidewalk in the subdivision. They have a right to be here. The same way black people have a right to be on sidewalks or walk through streets or run through neighborhoods or do any of those other things. You see how that works, white people? People can come into your subdivision or into a neighborhood or a park or an apartment building or an office building or a gym or any damn where else and do whatever it is they came to do without you bothering them. The same way we do to you every single day.
Absolutely beautiful. I love that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I absolutely love that. The reason why we don't think that, like, all right, I'll give you an instance. Let's be Colombo for a second. 2 white guys, as he said, in a black neighborhood, yeah, and they look middle class and above. They didn't look like street white youths, yeah, and they've been dropped off in a black neighborhood, and they seemed comfortable and like they knew where they was, yeah. See, that's the privilege. I jogs them going for go look, yeah. Well, you're gonna go down into ghetto as 2 middle class, like they don't know where they. Let me show you. White people don't mistake what area they're in. They can tell by the quality of cars, the housing. They know when they're going into the ghetto, yeah? They're the 2 told that Uber driver, turn the car around, yeah? No,
Do you know what?
They got dropped off, got out the car, and bopped to where they was going. Jogs them a look.
And do you know what? I was gonna say, when the black guy was commentating and he observed the 2 white guys getting out of the car and they stood by the pole, he put it in question them because he probably thought, they're putting up 5G. let me stay in his car.
Oh dear.
But you know what though? It's funny because black people are automatically seen as a threat. Automatically seen as a threat.
Yeah.
Like you see, like loads of studies that they've done. Like I remember being in school, funny enough, I remember being in school and they did this, they showed it was a picture, it was a still picture. And it showed a black guy holding a bag and an old woman. And it looked like the black guy was running. And everybody in the class, they said, what do you think that this picture shows? And basically, the teacher said, that's not what the picture was. The picture was, she'd left her bag somewhere and he was running back to give it to her. That's what actually happened. But everybody thought he'd stolen her bag. But it's just, you know what? Humans, our instinct is to protect ourselves. It's self-preservation, isn't it? Yeah. If you paint us as a villain, you're going to be in self-preservation mode every time you see us. Every time you see us, it's an instinctive thing. It ain't let me think about this. There is no thinking. It is a feeling. And then people act on their feelings. So we need to change the narrative. Yeah.
That's years of subliminal messages
100%.
put through TV, magazines, debates, conversations, and like, sometimes I don't blame white people. Sometimes myself, if that's all they know, sometimes I walk past and I'm like, rah, do I need to be going around here myself? And it's got even black people thinking like it.
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's and that's even sad. That's even sad.
Yeah. It even happened to me one time. I was coming back from a gig and I knew the guys lived in a different area, so I was coming up to Stonebridge. And I said to them, you can just drop me here. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. You can just drop me here in Stonebridge. And they was like, see, are you sure? These are black people saying to me, are you sure we should drop you here? Is it safe? I said, I'm in my ends. What's wrong with you? So I got out of the car. And as I was walking up to go towards like Stonebridge train station, in the dark, there was around about 7 of them, all in black and everything. As I'm walking up, I see them just moving across like this. And I said, you know what? I've lived in this area all my life. I'm not afraid of nobody in my area, but I turned back. Because when I see black rats...
Of course you did.
I'm not messing with rats. No. I'm not messing with rats. No.
Yeah.
My man looked like a black big brag fairy walking through towards them. They would have had you, man. You would have to take off them glasses, Charles.
Do you know what? So I'm going back to what we were saying about the, white privilege and the white ladies in this. So I remember I was working one time and there was a lady from Australia. So she's been there for a year or so and she's looking to move. And this is what I said, they don't go to places if they don't want to go to certain places. Because I remember she saying to me, she goes to me, what's Housden like? I was like, I don't go Housden. So why do you want to go Housden? All the areas you're going to pick to choose to live. Why you want to go Housden? Wait, I just heard it's vibrant. Yeah, all right.
I'll tell you why. They've got a good biscuit factory near Houston.
Yeah, not vibrant. Yeah,
that's right.
It's John.
Listen. The treatment of George Floyd was so far-reaching that almost immediately the whole of America reacted. Let's have a look at some of the different states, and let's have a look at some of the protesting that took place within these states as regards to George Floyd's killing.
And there are people trying to stop Pepper spray has started.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice. Come on. We all need somebody to lean on. We just might have a problem. Do you understand? We all need somebody to lean on.
Beautiful scenes there from the capital, Washington, D.C., with everybody singing in harmony, beautiful lights in Denver. But again, when we looked at Seattle, we saw the police, tear gas. Oh, my days. How are we feeling as regards to the protesting, gents?
I would say when I saw those protests in America and the guys hanging on the traffic lights and I thought of the song "Fight the Power." If you ain't got time to, after this show, you know what I mean, go and YouTube it or Google it. I thought that straight away. And do you know, it was nice to see as well the amount of white people there. You know what I mean? I think that, it might be the time black people might have been protesting via Zoom, but it is what it is. And it was nice to see white people taking upon board our struggles and listening and joining in. And they sang in time as well, which is even better.
Yeah, because you know what's funny though? Like, we've all got white friends, and we all know people that they got our back. But you know what?
Right.
This here has made everybody say we have to do something. It ain't good enough just you saying I ain't racist. Nope.
Yes.
You have to, we all have to be against the racists, all of us. Because I'll be honest, racist people will only listen to people that look like them.
Yeah.
We need their voice to tell them how they're supposed to behave. We've been telling them for years. They ain't listening to us.
Yeah.
They ain't listening to us. It has to be someone, a family member, a friend, a loved one, someone to say to them, that was fucked up. Don't send me that bullshit no more. Don't send me that.
Yeah,
then
protest is needed.
Then they question themselves. Make their circle get small. Don't let them feel too comfortable. So it was good to see black, white, all type of different nationalities together. Oh, it was nice, man. Everybody, people bringing their own food and shit and sharing and jerk chicken mixed up with mashed potato, and yeah, man, it was nice. I like it.
And I was one thing I know, like, being from the East End, yeah, I've got a lot of white mates and stuff like that. And one thing I know, like, certain of my white friends would actually fight for you. Sometimes you got to ask them, listen, I got abused, not you. Let me fight this. No, Quince, I've got this, son. He's bang out of order. He's banging. He needs to get sparks, son.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Bottom line is, protesting is a start, definitely, because it shows visually how much people are disgusted with what's going on. So that's beautiful.
And the numbers of people.
Second thing to be doing now, you got to change the law. There's got to be a law. It doesn't matter if it's morally is wrong. Of course, that what we saw morally is wrong. The policeman didn't see that. There needs to be a law that will bring him to task. They say there's laws now, but it's not working. So you need to do laws like I've heard it be mentioned. You can actually sue the police himself as an individual as well as the organisation, the police organisation. I think that would work well. Because if a man know you can sue him for 6 million and you're going to brook the whole of his generation till all his great-great-grandsons going to be sweeping road because they ain't got no money. He'll think twice about, those kind of actions.
Yeah.
We need to change the law, definitely.
Because you're right, because it's funny, because a criminal, they will say, all right, then we bring in laws to take back goods, proceeds of crime. So if you made money from crime, we're going to take back that. You're committing a crime, and you need to know that there's a penalty at the end of it. Not just prison. I think you're right. It needs to be financial. People understand money. People understand money. Because prison time, he might not get prison time. But money, you fuck about. That'll get them in line.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you who's going to get prison time, yeah? There's one protester that decided to protest in a different way, yeah? Watch this clip here.
It's real! Black Lives Matter! Oh shit, they tear gassing. Hey, it's real! I stole it from the police! I stole the police horse!
Tears Saturn. Yeah,
He's got to be Jamaican.
That's bad.
He's got to be Jamaican.
That brother there, he studied that program, the Horse Whisperer. He studied it. He studied it. But listen, if you think that's bad, right? Obviously, I agree with Slim. The looting thing took it to another level. And just to let you know, there's certain things in this next clip I'm going to show you, right? Looting has no discrimination.
Sweetheart, is this your car? Did you leave your car to go get some sneakers? What did you get? At least show me what you got. Show me what you got since you left your car. Hold on, let's see. Let's see what you got here. Let's see. Let's see what you got. You left your car in traffic, man. You got right? You good? That's what I'm talking about. Yo, you got the chick in the wheelchair. I quit. The chick in the wheelchair is about to get. I'm done. Damn, she got a box. Yo, shorty, I need a Yankee hat. I need a Yankee hat. I need a Yankee hat.
All I'm going to say on that, yeah, the brother in the wheelchair, when social services catch him, disability allowance is done.
Yeah, but what's he going in there for? Trainers. Come on now. You understand. Where's his family at? Where's his carer?
Listen,
Come on
the
now.
trainers that he had on when he was in the wheelchair, he's had them for 15 years. Those were the original Jordans, you know. Man, they're box fresh.
I think he lost his legs in the same trainers.
I thought at least the woman in the car, she should have got some leggings while she was in the shop as well, because I don't know where she was going with them different colour leggings there, boy.
Brother, she stole 2 trainers. She stopped her car in the middle of the road to get 2 trainers. And then her face now is all over the internet. So you know she's going jail in them same trainers.
For 2 trainers. She's mad.
2 trainers, yeah?
All right, but you know what? All right, listen to this.
People, man.
At least she got away with the 2 trainers, yeah? Watch this clip.
serious. This nigga really serious. Yo, this nigga really. Yo, he really wildin'. Yo, this nigga wildin'.
I said we could have made money together.
We could have made money together. But no, but listen to how he's a bad man. No, but listen to this, yeah. He ain't got not one plan in his head. If you see a cash machine on the side of the road, the man ain't got no getaway car. He ain't got no tools to bracket to the safe. He don't even know if there's money in there. And he could. Did you see how he tried to get into the bus? He looked like he's doing the waltz and the foxtrot.
Yeah. He was doing, he was doing strictly cash dancing.
Yeah. Man, do this here.
Listen, I'm a bus driver. I would not have let him on my bus neither. You understand? I'm not going to be your getaway driver. Yeah, you're taking the piss. You think about it. You're using the bus driver as the getaway driver. So you make me accomplice.
But you know
Get
what?
out of here, man. I'm gone.
I found hilarious because at first I was like, "Why is this bus waiting here? Is he actually waiting?" And I was just thinking, obviously, in the Windrush generation, there were a lot of Bajan drivers, and I can imagine my dad's generation saying, "I can't believe this Russell man here expecting me to put this thing on my bus. Are you guys an idiot?"
Well, listen. Obviously, the bus driver was trying to say to him, "Sorry, mate, no cash, Oyster card only." However, there's been some protesters who, as we saw in Seattle when they was actually firing over the tear gas, there's some protesters who know exactly what to do when that happens. Watch this. Booyaka! Let me see, madman. Oh! And go! Listen, mate, some of the football teams in the Premiership need to sign him up.
Yeah, man.
Listen,
them halfway line goals. That's Beckham kick.
I can't even do that on FIFA.
No, but the way how my man blazed that thing, you know, it looked like he kicked it into a next protest to help them. Because I don't know. The way I couldn't even see it. It went out of a shot. You know when you see Superman fling something in the film and it's gone out the atmosphere.
He kicked it back in time, Kane. He kicked it back in time to the civil rights movement.
Bad man. Bad man.
Yeah.
That went back to Selma.
That was bad.
On the real though, I wanna mention, as much as we are talking about the looters and the idiotic stuff that they've been doing, the main part is that there was the memorial for George and Al Sharpton. He took it there. Let's have a look at this.
I didn't grow up in the Third World, but I grew up in Third Ward. I grew up in Brownsville, and we had roaches. Now, I know Kevin Hart and some of the rich Hollywood folk here don't know what roaches are, but we had roaches, ludicrous. And one thing I found out about roaches is that if you keep the light off, if you're in the dark, a roach will pull up to your dinner table and have a 5-course meal. So I learned one of the ways to deal with roaches is if you cut the light on, I could run them roaches and track them down. And I've spent all my life chasing roaches all over this country.
I'm going to tell you something right now, yeah? I listened to that speech. It was about 40 minutes. And Al Sharpton was flinging bars. When I'm talking about, if he was a sound system and selector, he was flinging down dub plates. Because at first I was like, where's he going with the roaches thing? Yeah, and then his analogy to what the roaches compared to the people throughout the years he's been chasing. And he wasn't done, because there's another part when he talks about the knee on the neck. Yeah, and if we can get a chance to see that, for me, just watch this bit.
We were smarter than the underfunded schools you put us in, but you had your knee on our neck. We could run corporations and not hustle in the street, but you had your knee on our neck. We had creative skills. We could do whatever anybody else could do, but we couldn't get your knee off our neck. Man comes out of a single-parent home, educates himself, and rises up and becomes the president of the United States. And you ask him for his birth certificate, because you can't take your knee off our neck.
I'm going to just say this, yeah.
Yes.
When I heard that speech,
I love it.
When I heard that speech, it's not the first time this brother's done it. Trust me, I was in my house. I was licking the wall. I was trying to find the Bible, but it just, what I got out of that speech, it just showed me, and I so pray for this, that for black people to recognize how great we are. Because when you mentioned the words, you've had your knee on our neck and we've still risen. Doesn't matter what was put into place, we still rise and we still come out. Do you know what it's like? Black people were like, do you know when you get tight jeans and you know you're too big for the tight jeans, yeah? And you squeeze in.
No idea what you're talking about.
I'm just saying, for some females, but the fat still comes out. That's what I'm trying to say. Listen, the fat still comes, and that's us as black people, yeah? Black people we're amazing. We're so talented, and all what they try to put us down, and I let just these guys comment, we will still rise. We are the original self-raising flour with color and seasoning.
You know what? But you know,
Johnson can learn a few things from you, Quincy.
But you know what's amazing, yeah? And the reason why we are, you know, like when they talk about music and they say that person's got soul, and then you watch all the comics, all the prolific comics, most of them are black, you know, 95% of them. And it's because we mean what we say. We've had experiences. We've been through things. We speak with passion. Yeah. It ain't surface shit. It ain't just us singing. It ain't just us telling jokes. It's us. It's our essence. That's why anything that's applauded as a white person, especially in music, is because they sound like a black person. Oh, this one, she's got soul. She's got soul. Listen to Amy Winehouse. She didn't sound like a white singer. She didn't sound like a white singer. Adele, same thing. It's just what we have naturally, innately in us. When somebody else brings it, it's like with Elvis. Oh, he was this and this. But it was our essence, our dancing, our singing, our style, everything. Why do you think that people, they look at us like, oh my God, everything about us is amazing apart from being actually black, according to them. Everything's amazing.
When it's amazing as an excuse. They couldn't make no excuse for
so
what
the
they've
only
done.
thing they can pick on is the skin color.
Right. So even with George, they can't make an excuse. Like Barack Obama, like they said, he rose up, single parent family, became president of the United States. Where your birth certificate there? You understand? There's always something that is missing. You understand? Where George got killed, they can't make no excuse. There's no excuse. He was struggling. He was resisting. He was doing this. He was doing that. He was doing none of that. It's a bit like when they killed a guy in Stockwell. Yeah? You remember, they couldn't make no excuse neither. They tried it, shot him in his face 8 times, and then when the police was questioned, he overstayed his visa. He shouldn't dare. Charles Dominguez. Yeah, he shouldn't dare. Yes. Yeah, he shouldn't be in here. They can't make no excuse on this one. So they have to face the consequences now.
Yep, the commissioner was, I forgot her name. Cressida Dick, she actually got promoted, and she was the one who was actually handling that. However, saying that, one of the things that surprised me really and truly was the way how this whole thing has just blown up all over the world. Let's just have a look at some of the protests worldwide.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
Finland is watching. And we're tired of the same rerun.
Ayan, maraming salamat ho mga kababayan sa ating patuloy.
Absolutely amazing scenes there from across the world. I mean, did you know that Philippines would have come out to represent like that?
I was trying to find a black person. I'm surprised.
Listen,
I couldn't see one black person, but if that's what they were protesting for, then I don't know if, then it was good. But I never saw one black person there. But it was good.
I would say this to me, though, across Europe, I mean, this man's death, and it represented from Stephen Lawrence to all the deaths in America. It's bigger
Martin.
than George Floyd. It's bigger than George Floyd.
Yeah, look, it's on a human level.
Yes, right.
Yes.
People, that's a human level thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, people were that disgusted with what they saw. That is a reaction by humans.
That gave me hope.
And that was beautiful to see. Yeah.
Those clips give you that little glimpse of hope. Like, there are good people out there. There are people who do think 100%. The same way as you.
I mean, when we think about it, I mean, this is a prime example of a viewpoint I used to have. When I first started doing comedy, stand-up comedy, and I used to, when I started getting gigs up and down the UK, in my head I was saying, they're not going to understand me in this particular part of the UK because it's full of white people, so therefore, by default, they must be racist. And it wasn't until I actually started performing there and seeing the reaction that those people was giving me, let me know that, you know what, there's only a small minority of racists, there's a small minority of bigots, and in general, we can see what's a true reflection of what we've seen with these protests, that worldwide, most people are decent people, who, as you said, Slim, have a love for the human spirit. Now, it's good watching America, it's good watching all over the world, but let's have a look at right here in the UK how the protests were. Yeah, so look, guys like myself, we've all lived in this country a lifetime. We have, I'm sure, we've got stories of our experiences with the police and with racism. Quincy, have you got a story?
Yeah,
have you got any experiences?
Unfortunately, too many to mention, but I'll mention just one, and it pans throughout the years. So I remember growing up being stopped by the police meat wagon. Obviously saw the size of me, so they called 2 out for me. But it was the intimidation and the threats in the back of that van, and I actually thought that I was going to lose my life. and roll on 25, 30 years later, driving the car with my son, taking him to Saturday school, as we all fathers, to better us, being stopped by police for the classic broken tail light situation. But it was watching when the police pulled me over, they separated me and my son, and they kettled my son, and they kettled me so I couldn't see him. And I was left with the decision that, do I naturally protect my son and possibly put myself and him in danger? And knowing the fact that this is my son's first reaction with the police, what kind of conversation am I going to have with my son to tell him that not all police is bad? And he was startled, but I had to stay calm for my son. And I'm thinking to myself, 25 years later, this bullshit is still going on. And they still look at me and look at my son both the same. I was driving a nice car, by the way.
Kane, can you find any personal experiences in your lifetime as regards to confrontation with the police, racism?
There's been quite a few. There's one that stands out where I was in the West End and this guy was like racially abusing me, calling me nigger and all kind of thing, and then he kicked my wing mirror on my car. That's when I got out of my car. And then, so me and this guy struggling, we're fighting, and so I'm getting the better of the guy. And from nowhere, I feel someone punch me in my face. So before I know it, I'm just on the floor, someone's on top of me, and I realize by this point, it's police now. Man's telling me, keep still. They ain't touched the white guy. The guy's trying to kick me in my head.
So who threw the punch at you?
The police officer.
The punch at you?
The police officer. Yeah, he blindsided. I didn't see him come from nowhere. The police officer from behind me come up, saw the situation, punched me. Didn't just try to drag me off, punched me in my face. Anyway, so all the witnesses were like saying, "Oh no, it ain't the black guy's fault. It's the white guy." So they arrested the white guy, took him down to the police station at Charing Cross police station, and so I went down there. They took pictures of my mouth. By this point, my mouth swelled up. It's bleeding. Yeah, it's bad. And they got cameras in there as well. So they got like video camera, and they took pictures as well as evidence. Fast forward now a couple of months, go to court, because I'm taking the guy to court for racial abuse. And the police officer, I was going to take him to court as well. Outside the court, the police officer come up to me, "Hey, mate, listen, what happened? Yeah, sorry about that. That I punched you in your face and blah, blah." So I didn't say nothing because I'm still pissed because I was going to take them to court. I was like, I don't care. Then we go in court under oath when he's going through his notes, talking about what happened, the events. Because when he hit me, I was on the ground and I said to him, "You punched me in my face." I said, "Get off, you punched me in my face." He read out his notes because they got to read out whatever was said. Mm-hmm. And he read it out and he said to the judge, "But I did not punch him in his face." He said that under oath. They don't care. The system ain't there for us. They will lie, they'll say anything, they'll do anything to protect themselves. They don't give a shit. Imagine I'm the one who's being racially abused and I'm the one who gets punched in the face, and then the footage and the pictures that they took disappeared. They said that they didn't have anything. So
sometimes
and that's just one
for
thing.
Us is just ice. Slim, what about yourself? You live in Brixton. You must have had some confrontation with police.
I don't have no confrontation with them. Yeah, I'm skinny. Yeah, and I don't want them to pull any weapons out of me. Remember, they got taser. Yeah, I can't afford for them to taser me. Have me body popping on the road, on the floor. I can't afford for that. I can't afford for them to lick me. Yeah, with no truncheon or anything like that. That would break my bones. I don't fool about with them like that. You know, if they say you're under arrest, I'm like, okay then. I know some man, what for? Struggling, everything. I ain't got no criminal record. So I'll go with you, get processed, and bounce. I walk into the police station like a Vogue model. Trust me. That's me.
Thank you, Slim. Thank you. Now, look, I've got some personal stories myself that I'd love to share. However, I just think because we've got four guys here, it'll be refreshing to hear from a female voice. It's with great pleasure I'd like to welcome a model, actor, absolute beautiful soul and spirit, Eunice Olumide, please, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
How you doing, Eunice?
I'm good. How are you guys? Can you see me?
Can't see you. We can hear you.
Can't see you, but I can hear your lovely accent.
We can hear you.
Oh, we can see you now. We can
Can
see
you
you.
see
There
me?
you go.
Oh, we can see you now. We can see
Yeah,
you.
we
Don't
can
put
see
trouble
you.
anyone.
Oh, you
We
can
can see
see
you,
me.
darling. So,
A love in the
Eunice,
throat.
Yeah.
how are you?
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining
Ew.
us. We really, really appreciate your time. Now, tell us about your particular story. It takes place in May 2015. It's regards to a dear friend of yours, but I'll let you unveil the story.
Yeah, so basically it's regarding a friend of mine called Shegu. I don't know if you guys have heard much about his particular situation. So I met him when he came to the UK from his country of Sierra Leone, around about 17 years old. Scotland's a really small place, so you do tend to gravitate to other people of colour. And I kind of met him through my best friend. She was actually going out with his best friend, who coincidentally was the friend he was with the night that he was murdered. So I kind of hung out with him for about on and off over 5-10 years. Obviously life goes on and changes, but we were still friends on like Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So basically what happened with his situation was there was a big boxing match on. We love sports just as much as anybody, and you know those kind of pay-per-view fights are always like really late at night, like 2-3 a.m., and everyone makes a big deal out of it. You know, you get your food and your carry-outs if you drink and whatever else. So what had happened is he lives in a place called Kirkcaldy, which is in Fife, just outside Edinburgh. And it's a wee, tiny, tiny place. It's like smaller than Croydon. It's probably smaller. It's probably smaller than like Seven Sisters area in London. Like it's a really small place. So he's lived there the whole time he's been in Scotland. And in 2015, he was probably like 31, 30, probably, I think he was 31, 32. So he lived there for like a really significant period of time, and there was very, very few. There might have been one other Black person in that entire area. So on that particular night, he was up at his mates or with his cousin and his best friend, and they had all, you know, got quite wasted. Basically, they had been probably drinking and just having a good time. Now, at some point in time, although I don't think the police ever really did what they were supposed to do, as in investigate the situation properly, because they were too busy kind of defending themselves. Somehow or another, he's consumed MDMA and possibly flakka as well, another drug. He's left the party and he started to head for his house. He's probably feeling unwell. Now, I've known Sheku for a really long, nearly a decade, and I've never seen him take drugs before. It's not his personality. It's not what he's about. He's a big softie. He's never been in trouble with anybody. He was like one of those kind of Black people that thinks everyone is cool and, you know, like we shouldn't worry about skin color. His girlfriend was white, his kids were mixed, etc., etc. So he was really not that guy. So he leaves the party, starts heading for his house, probably because he was under the influence of drugs and he was probably freaking out, I would imagine. So he's trying to get back to his house. It's really early in the morning, and he's somehow made it to his house. And then I don't know if he's tried to go back to the party or if he's tried to go to his girlfriend's house, which is really nearby. because he's obviously significantly distressed and acting erratically. Now, while he's trying to go to his house, at some point in time, one of his neighbors, which really makes no sense to me, I don't know if it was a new neighbor who had recently moved into the area, because people would have known who Shegu was. There's not exactly like loads of black people living in Scotland, or particularly not a wee tiny town like Kirkcaldy. So that did confuse me, because I'm like, so how, like, who would have called the police? He's going to his own house, and even if he was out of it or wasted, he's returning to his own house. So the police have been called, and I do believe that they were told that there was a black guy carrying a knife, because the way that they responded with so many officers and with such significant force suggests that that call was put into the police. So the police have arrived, and immediately he's been attacked. There was a white female police officer that is resorted to using a baton. He received about 26 different injuries. He was gassed. CS spray was used against him. His leg restraints were used on him. Batons were used to subdue him. And he basically died as a consequence of this restraints that were used against him. What's really interesting about this story is there was a litany of errors made by the police, and it was demonstrated that they did not follow correct protocol during that arrest, or indeed after, in terms of how they're supposed to report the incident. And I think what's most shocking about it is it was always insisted that he had a knife, but then after they went to court and stuff, it became apparent that he didn't have a knife. Well, to me, there's no evidence other than an anonymous phone call that said he had a knife, because certainly when the police arrested him, there was no knife. There's no knife in the evidence. There's no knife anywhere at all. So somehow or another, the knife vanished conveniently. Now, if you've ever been to Scotland or you've been to somewhere like Kirkcaldy, it is nothing like London. It's not even as built up as somewhere like, other areas in London, sort of Chelsea side, or if you're going out towards Richmond or something. Like, it's really quite small, and there's not like loads of places that you could just hide something. Plus, where they captured him is right outside his house, so if he'd had a knife, it would have been found. There was no knife recovered. So basically, that's the story of what happened to him. It went to court. All of the officers didn't receive any punishment whatsoever. They said there was no wrongdoing, and that led to his entire family literally having to relocate to the UK to fight for their son, because they knew that this wasn't right. Anyone that knew him knew that this story made no sense whatsoever. On top of that, he should not have been killed. On top of that, there was no weapon found. It wasn't like he was brandishing a weapon, so therefore that gave the police reason to attack him in that way, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So
no life.
there is going to be a new inquiry that's going to open into the case, and I know that his sister was saying very recently in an interview that she sees the case is almost identical to that of George Floyd.
So looking at that, obviously looking at the similarities between your good friend Shegu and also George Floyd, how does that make you feel when you're now watching this again? So many years after your good friend has been murdered, killed, has passed away. How does that make you feel today? Do you feel that something that's moved, that we have moved on, or are we getting closer to dealing with this situation?
How does it make me feel? I think, to be honest, as a woman of colour in the UK, I'm probably extremely desensitized, because stuff like this has happened to like everyone I know my entire life. It's just normal, you know, which is really bad. Like you shouldn't really feel nothing, or numbness is probably the best word to use. I think it's great that so much attention has been given to the George Floyd situation. I'm really inspired and happy and positive that so many people have come out and have drawn attention to this through protesting. So I think that is absolutely amazing, because we've clearly seen it affected people all over the world, particularly in England as well. People who I have never in my life seen talking about race are now talking about race, both people of colour and white people who I've never seen discussing the topic or discussing the topic. So I think it is really great in that sense, because I'm praying that this is a catalyst that encourages everyone to really take it really seriously and to try to affect change.
Okay. How did the immediate community, his immediate community react, his neighbours, etc., to his death? And has any police officer been charged or disciplined for his death?
No one was disciplined. They were all cleared of no wrongdoing. Everybody in the whole of Scotland were just utterly shocked by it. There was a documentary done on it on BBC, but there's a bit of a problem in the UK, because if you look at the kind of non-black population, there's definitely big divisions in the UK. Scotland is completely divided from England ideologically, and they do things really separately. So a lot of the times when stuff like racial incidents happen, say in Scotland, they're not discussed in England. And a lot of the time when things in England happen, they're not discussed in Scotland. Especially, I've noticed where we're supporting one another. So for example, I found it really interesting that if we look at a completely separate incident like student loans, in Scotland we don't pay to go to university, and many Scottish people were protesting in favour and supporting people in England that they shouldn't have to pay fees. However, you didn't really see that broadcast in England. So everyone in Scotland thought it was really, really wrong what happened to him. I think when they did the documentary, they should have waited for more people that really knew him to be part of it and had more of his family featured in it, rather than just interviewing his direct best friend who was there on the night. I think that it was something that, you know, it's interesting that we're probably more conscious of incidents that take place in the United States of America than we are actually within the UK. I think that's a really big issue. It's a kind of problem that we've picked up from the larger population, from the division between non-black people, because they're so divided. We don't really connect with people of colour across the UK. Neither do we value them, because we kind of stereotype them as, oh, well, they're from Scotland, they won't have a clue, or they won't be able to rap, or whatever it is. We don't see them as equal. But I mean, I put up a post on my Facebook, which for some reason now has 5,000 shares, when the George Floyd incident took place. In that post, I said it's really interesting that we're talking about this, yet the exact same thing happens in the UK. And if anything, I would say it was worse here, because racism in the UK is so institutional and so systemic, and it is so conscious and subconscious that it is often covert, but it's also overt. And we have many examples of the exact same thing happening here. And in that post, I mentioned Sheku's name. I also mentioned many other people across the UK to England, including people like Julian Cole or Olaseni Lewis, who was a young man from England who voluntarily checked himself into a mental health hospital, who was later killed by, asphyxiated essentially by 11 police officers. So in that post, I named people across the entire UK, not just black men, but also black women who have been killed by the police in the most ridiculous situations. And it was so interesting, the amount of people, both black and white, who were so shocked. They were like, oh, we've heard about some of the bigger case ones, such as, you know, a gentleman from Broadwater Farm. My brain's not working, so I can't remember anyone's name right now. But we've heard about some of these instances. We haven't really heard about all of them. And, you know, as I was listening to you guys talk before we started, I think the difference between the UK and the US is that because in the US they have had so many hugely prominent public figures, such as Martin Luther King, such as Malcolm X, you know, it's not possible to hide racism in the same way because of the work that they did, Marcus Garvey, etc., within that region. They really did establish a lot of different movements, whether right or wrong. You know, these movements from Pan-Africanism to, you know, National Islam or whatever, really did educate the population on their history and on what had happened to them. Whereas in the UK, we don't have those types of public figures. And we have never really established any institutions or organizations that are really prominent within the community that educate us in our history. And of course, transatlantic slave trade is not part of history. It's not taught in schools. It's not taught in our education system, which was a point I made on Question Time, which for some reason seemed to blow people's minds, which I really couldn't understand, because I just thought these things I was talking about were just like normal and common knowledge. And it wasn't until I went on Question Time and another show, Jeremy Vine, where I was completely attacked by 4 white people.
I watched
two
that
white
one.
presenters and 2 white.
Sorry to cut you, Eunice. I watched that one when you were on
JV.
And I was so upset. It really hurt me because it's as if people were trying to tell you your experience of racism, and it's like they don't have a clue. It's not in their world. It's not in their world.
Well,
they don't get it.
It's very painful because you've got 2 white women and 1 white female host, so 3 white women and 1 white guy. And basically, let's just pretend that we took the transatlantic slave trade, since it is the biggest Holocaust in history, and gave it the same respect as the Nazi Holocaust in Germany, where like 5 million as opposed to 15 million people were exterminated, but that's another topic. You would never in your life stop a Jewish person talking about what happened to them, not for 1 second. You would never do that. So what it really showed me was that in the UK, particularly actually within England, there is, as I said on Question Time, a collective amnesia or a very deliberate attempt to deny the reality of history. And I said in an Instagram post recently, what I find most fascinating about this is that, you know, many people, you know, non-Black people, white people, when we're having this discussion, they will say things like, other than just stuff to be hurtful, like you've got a chip on your shoulder, which is just awful. They will say things like, well, this happened a long time ago, so why does it matter? Now, I tried to explain the relevance and the way that the capitalism as we know it and the banking system is built on slavery. And the reason I articulated that, and something that I put in my Instagram post, was in Western society, it's undeniable that one of the most important things in society of value is inheritance. So if inheritance that goes back hundreds of years, thousands of years, is the most important thing, how can you then say that the transatlantic slave trade and colonialism is irrelevant and because it happened a long time ago,
because
we
they
should not
benefit from
discuss it? Anything that means we should discuss it more. And I think that the reason when I make these appearances, which is why I haven't actually done any deliberately on the George Floyd situation, because which I'll tell you why later. But I think these experiences the JV was shocking to me, because I think until that point, I'm used to discussing things with academics. I work in the arts, so most people in these industries are quite educated and they would never stop you from talking, as you saw in question time. But when I went on JV, it was a really incredible learning curve for me, because I really realized for the first time that we tend to think of racism and unconscious discrimination as like a minority of people, but that is not the case, unfortunately, gentlemen. The reality is it's probably a much larger percentage, probably like 60-40, or even like 50-50, like Brexit, that actually are consciously and intentionally racist, because common sense delineates that certain things should be obvious. And unfortunately, to me, I do feel that part of the reason I said what I said is probably because I'm Scottish, and Scottish people have no filter whatsoever. Whereas in England, it's really fascinating, because I find that people of colour are constantly making excuses for white people. They're constantly sugarcoating things. They're constantly kind of putting their feelings before Black people's feelings. They're constantly altering what they've got to say because they want to protect their job, or they want to protect something. I don't know what it is they're trying to protect, because ultimately there's no freedom if the African continent is constantly spat on. Even if you have wealth, like, you're still seen as Black, and if you go into the wrong neighborhood in the wrong country, they will deal with you in that way, regardless of how much money or fame or whatever it is you think you've got. So I think that obviously I'm aware of history, so I understand the mental and psychological brutality and conditioning that's happened to people of color, particularly within big countries, big cities such as England and parts of the United States of America, etc., etc. So I do understand why we are pandering to white people, essentially. However, I think that this is the greatest mistake we've ever made, not to demand some kind of reparations, compensation, not to demand certain things be part of, history. And I think sugarcoating things for, I think what was really funny about when I went on JV is it was quite obvious to me that the white women in particular were not used to a woman of color who was young enough to be their daughter, might I add, telling them that they were wrong. So clearly, no one's ever told them that they're wrong and that the way that they think is wrong. That was fascinating to me.
Can I say this, Eunice? Can I say this to you? I want to pick up what you just mentioned about the Atlantic slave trade, and obviously, you living in Scotland, and it's a small percentage of Black people who live in England anyway. So to live in Scotland for all these years, and one of the things which I've learned is that for history, that Scottish people were one of the main financiers in the slave trade, and a lot of their wealth has come from there. Do you think that Scotland is ready for that reality, that truth, that conversation?
I would say 150%, much more so than England. I mean, Scotland actually has the first Black lecturer in the history of the United Kingdom, Sir Jeff Palmer, who started in England but couldn't get anywhere, so he came to Scotland and got that opportunity. I think that we've done so much work, much more work than you've actually done in England, despite the fact that slaves were never brought here and there's hardly any Black people here. You saw recently in the early in the year and the end of last year, the University of Glasgow actually deciding they were going to make some kind of reparations. We can debate about how they went about that as being right or wrong in a different way. when you think about the population of England and the amount of descendants, direct descendants of slavery that are in England, and the fact that there is little to nothing done, it is shocking. It is diabolical, and it is actually horrific, especially when you're looking at the reality of the statistics of Black men incarcerated, Black men that are in mental institutions. I did a piece in the Metro recently, and I talk a lot about not only those experiences, but also, you know, the way that women of color are treated, particularly in England. I wrote an article in a fashion magazine, Hunger, which was basically England hates Black women because there are so few dark-skinned Black women represented naturally anywhere in England historically, which I just find so fascinating. And I've written a chapter in a new book coming out, the Loud Black Girls Anthology, where I discuss in great detail representations of Black women. But in an article I wrote in the Metro recently, in the recent TUC report, it shows you that 41% of women of colour, and I think this report is based in England, are subjected to bullying and harassment as well as discrimination, 41%. And an even greater percentage of those women would never report it because they thought nothing would happen. So what we can see clearly is that women of colour are subjugated, discriminated against. And actually, I think I have my own theory on this, which is during the transatlantic slave trade, it became very obvious to white people that Black women could not be silenced, and they were not going to do what they were told. Even if you lash them, put them in roast
listen,
they're
Eunice,
not going to do what you want. You can rape them.
I'm telling you.
So I think what they decided was, well, these Black women, they won't do what, so we better just pretend they don't exist. Let's alienate them. Let's cut them out of everything. Let's focus on dividing Black men from Black women and steering Black men towards loving other or women outside of their race. And let's focus all of our energy into excluding the Black women and demonizing the Black woman, particularly if she is one that is conscious. Let's make, that's part of Western, particularly Anglo-Saxon culture anyway.
I'll tell you
women
one thing, Eunice.
should not be,
they can never, ever silence you, my dear. Unfortunately, though, we're running out of time. I have to say thank you so much for your contribution today. It's just been an absolute eye-opener. Please tell us about your book again, the name of the book, the title of your books.
Oh, I have a few books. I've got one that's just a general book, how to get into fashion. I've contributed towards a book called The Loud Black Girls Anthology. In that, I kind of explain a lot about why you have these stereotypes of Black men and Black women, which I would argue is a result of movies like Birth of a Nation. Something crazy happened because in the 50s to the 70s, you've got, amazing Black actors like Sidney Poitier, and images of Black men were totally different to what we see now, which is where the media kind of hijacked our image both in music and film and represent us in the kind of monstrous way that we're represented in today. So I've got a lot of different things coming out. You can check them out on my social media.
Because you're such a monumental person within our community, we're going to have to get you back on again. We just haven't got enough time to deal with all the things that you have to share with us. But Eunice, thank you for coming on #ComedyTV and sharing your story with us, and most importantly as well, your thoughts and your views as regards to racism within this society and within the world. Guys, please, let's give her a big round of applause, man. Thank you. You're a queen.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Definitely have you back on soon, darling. So, listen, ladies and gentlemen, guys, wow, what a show today, man. We've unfortunately run out of time. We've gone a little bit over, ladies and gentlemen, but because of the nature of the program today, we didn't want to rush it. We didn't want to cut it. We wanted people to have their thoughts and their views. I think, guys, what's happening with you guys this week? Anything you want to let us know, let the viewers know that you're working on? Kane?
I want to speak to Eunice for another 3 days. That's what I want to do after this.
Listen, powerful, man. Absolutely powerful.
I love listening to her. I could sit here for ages listening to her. I want to definitely speak to her differently after this, man, because it's beautiful,
inspirational.
Man. It's nice. You know what? I'm just basking in like black greatness at the moment, man. Just feeling the love. There's a thing that's going around now where we're nominating black people that we look up to and we respect, but don't have the recognition that they deserve. And so people are tagging other people in it, and it's such a good thing that we're just showing love to each other. Sometimes we don't say it as black people. Sometimes we don't say, brother, you're amazing, you're talented, you're special. But trust me, being on this with you lot, man, I appreciate that I've got the platform to work with you guys, man, and I appreciate every one of you lot. Trust me.
Bless, man. And when's your show this week, Kane, on
this
Instagram?
Week, Wednesdays I'll do my Instagram live. I'm doing my podcast, Chalk and Cheese, and I've got a dating one coming up soon. Watch out for that one. Any of the single people, watch out for that one. That one.
My days, man. I can hear all
Slim.
the wounds.
I'm gonna get a Slim on there. Watch out.
I can hear all the wounds going like this already, mate. Around about 15 million eggs have just been released, Kane.
Yeah, man. No, I'll get a Slim on there.
Slim, what have you got on? What you got happening this week?
Big man, I'm trying to follow you lot, follow suit. I'm sitting down thinking about IG Live program to do with
overdue, man. Long overdue.
My fans, my followers. Yeah, man. But this Thursday you can catch me with Quincy. We're going to be doing an Instagram Live. I'll be a guest on Quincy's show, so watch out for that. And apart from that, we'll catch them next week again.
Fantastic. And big man Quincy, obviously you're going to be with Slim this week on your show. What else have you got for us coming up?
You know what? I'm following Kane, man. That Eunice, her accent is unbelievable, mate. I can listen to it all night.
Can you imagine her cussing you?
I
like that
love her to
Scottish
cuss.
accent. Yeah, man.
I love her to cuss me. I want her to cuss me because no, so Daddy's Issues this Thursday with Slim on IG Live from 7:30. Apart from that, Supreme FM on the radio from 10 to 1. From all this week. Yeah, that's me.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, and the football season's back next week. Hey.
No, I don't think it's about that.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Trust you to lower the tone. So listen, So listen, that's the end of #Comedy TV for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember to follow us on YouTube, Facebook. Make sure you subscribe, share with a friend, and we'll see you again next week with more from us. Thank you very much. Good night. God bless.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm 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 George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I, George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
George Floyd Adui.
I'm George Floyd.
I am 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 George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I, George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Io sono George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I, George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
George Floyd.
George Floyd.
I am George Floyd.
Je suis George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
I'm George Floyd.
We are George Floyd.